So the Teacher Wellbeing Index 2025 from Education Support has been released, and it makes for some bleak yet unsurprising reading. So the headlines: the average wellbeing score for education staff is 43.42. The national average 51.4. So you can see here it is the lowest since they began recording this in 2019. 76% of education staff feel stressed. 77% said work harms their mental health. Over a third say they're at risk of clinical depression. Why is this happening? Well, anyone working in education can easily tell you, but a huge part of this is culture. The report shows that nearly half of education staff said their school's culture negatively affects their well-being. And that just isn't about workload. It's the atmosphere, it's the morale, the expectations, the just, have you got a minute? I know you're busy, but, oh, just squeeze it in. Oh, we'll look at that eventually. Here's another staff meeting where we introduce another thing you've got to do without taking anything away. The quiet message that if you're struggling, the issue is you, not the system. I'm not even blaming school leaders necessarily for this, because they are no better off. In fact, they're under even more pressure. 86% of senior leaders say they feel stressed. Over 80% say they spend most of their time in complete time poverty. And let's be honest, when the people who are meant to support staff are barely keeping their own heads above water, it becomes almost impossible to build a healthy culture. You say you can't pour from an empty cup, especially when that cup has been chipped, cracked, and it's just leaking everywhere. Then there's just everything else that's been quietly added to the job. 70% of staff saying they're helping pupils manage emotions every single week. The fact that we seem to be the only ones trying to solve the mental health crisis in our students. 30% providing food. 24% are buying essentials out of their own pockets. We wear more hats than we've ever worn before. We're not just teachers anymore. We're counsellors, we're psychiatrists, we're social workers, we're doctors, nurses, substitute parents, emergency snack cupboard, all rolled into one. And here's a crucial bit for me. Whenever one of these wellbeing index reports is released, I make a video like this. And in the last 12 months, what has actually been implemented to help teachers with the issues underpinning all of this? Nothing's improved. Workload hasn't got any easier. Just more is expected. The budgets are dwindling, so schools are having to do more with less. Behaviour seems to just be getting worse. There's nothing happening to address that. Support services are still nowhere. Staff shortages, retention, teachers leaving in their droves is still happening. And there's no actual strategy anywhere looking at actually fixing any of these issues. And what's worrying, if anything, in the past 12 months, we're heading in the opposite direction. If you look at what the DfE have announced around cost cutting and getting rid of assistant heads, what do you think is going to happen to the work those assistant heads do? It shouldn't be passed down onto teachers. And don't even get me started on Ofsted's new framework, because all I keep getting messaged about from schools who have been trial schools is that it's so much worse, being flagged as something that's just going to increase workload and not reduce it. More evidence, more documentation, more proving you're doing the job we know we're all capable of doing. No one's asking for this, but Ofsted don't care. They're just going to carry on piling that workload and pressure on. So yeah, these stats are shocking, but they're not surprising. Not when the culture just keeps demanding more from teachers without taking anything else away. Not when leaders are beyond exhausted. Not when external services have just disappeared and are nowhere to be seen. Not when budgets continue to dwindle. Not when every new responsibility gets pushed onto the same tired shoulders. Not when we spend a year doing nothing to actually reduce workload for teachers and improve well-being, and look at any of the conditions that continue to damage it. And that's the point this report makes painfully clear. Teacher wellbeing hasn't dropped because teachers have become less resilient. It's dropped because the demands keep rising without any support or anything else being taken away. Now, if you're watching this thinking, that's exactly how I feel, good. It should resonate, because none of this is a personal failure. The reality of a profession cracking under pressure. And I want to remind you, this is never a you problem as a teacher. It's a system problem. And it's time we stop pretending otherwise. And until workload, behaviour support, leadership capacity and inspection pressures are genuinely addressed, not in words, but in actual actions, nothing's going to change with this. It's just going to continue to get worse. But let this be a reminder to look after yourself, look after each other. And remember, teacher wellbeing is not a luxury. It is the foundation everything else rests on. And it's quite ironic that on the day this wellbeing index report, I wake up with a swollen eye, which I've been putting down to stress and just being beyond tired.